Hi, welcome back to Great Day Live here at Northeast Christian Church on Brownsboro Road. First of all, I love this campus. It's just beautiful. We just have to acknowledge that. This is Melinda Jeviden. You're the care pastor here, and we've been talking about how big of a role that is. And in that role, I want to talk about some practical ways that the church has been working to really laser focus in on the needs of people struggling and or living with mental health issues. So what are some of the ways that Northeast Christian is addressing this important topic? And just for TV production purposes, I'll tell you, we've got some full screens that we're going to show you that we'll ask you to kind of read through and look at as well, and I'll flag you to those as well. And so I know one of the things that you want to talk about is emotional healing and also spirituality.
Yeah, so we really wanted to make sure that we challenged ourselves and our congregation to have a bigger emphasis on mental health in 2021. And so one of the things that we've been working through is taking our entire staff through an 8-week course. It's called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And the whole premise behind this course is the reminder that in order to become more spiritually mature, in order to become more like Jesus, we have to be emotionally healthy. And a lot of times that means we have to be willing to talk about the hard stuff in our past that's not always so fun to talk about, so fun to unpack. But a lot of times when we're willing to face some of those truths and some of those realities of our story, it actually helps us understand how to have more empathy and more compassion for other people who are facing those same challenges. So we knew that before we can attempt to encourage our congregation and our church family to do that and to take those steps that are so vulnerable, we have to be willing to do that as a staff and kind of model what that looks like. And so by the end of November, our entire staff will have gone through that course, and our hope is that we can kind of continue to introduce that material to our congregation as well.
There's a lot of value in that. We can all very easily share our success stories, but I would argue that sharing our failures is more beneficial for other people to learn. What about mental health first aid?
Yeah, so Mental Health First Aid is a skill-based training program that's actually managed by the National Council for Mental Well-Being. So it's not a faith-based curriculum. It is, it says first aid. So think of how we learn CPR for how to treat someone who's having some kind of physical attack. Mental Health First Aid gives us the skills that we need to be able to identify and respond to someone facing a mental health challenge. There was a study in fall of 2020 that 25% of young adults 18 to 24 had thought of suicide in the last 30 days. And that is a statistic that should scare all of us in the sense of we have a responsibility here. And we need all of us to feel equipped to even approach someone in that conversation. So Mental Health First Aid is not a training for professionals who in the mental health field. It is a training for your mom and your neighbor and the lady at the cashier at the grocery store. It is for everyday people who just want to know how to have those conversations, how to ask the difficult questions to someone who we think might be facing some type of mental health challenge. So our entire staff has received that training, is certified as a mental health first aider, and then we hope to, over the next 12 months, really start training our congregation as well with those skills.
That's such a beneficial skill. And I'm very impressed that you're able to rattle off the statistics the way that you're able to, but I'm also saddened that you have to. I think that's really the heart of the struggle. Counseling.
Yeah, so again, just continuing to normalize the conversations around getting help. And a lot of times that looks like professional help, counselors and therapists. And one of the things that we realized, especially in COVID, is that financial stressors were a reason why people were not getting the help that they needed. And so our church, from that Love the Ville fund that we talk about, we take up an offering each year specifically for that. Our church designated a portion of that to members of our church family and community who needed professional help but didn't have the financial means to do that, so that we could continue to break down those walls and any barriers that existed from them being willing to get the help that they needed, because we, again, whatever we can do to remove those obstacles and to point people to the appropriate professional help. We as pastors don't want to ever claim to be that appropriate professional help for mental health challenges. We think it's vital that we point people to trained professionals who are equipped and prepared to handle mental health challenges.
And if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Melinda Jeviden, the care pastor here at Northeast Christian, about some practical ways to take on mental health issues. Excuse me. And I know the other one that you have, the last of the four that I have here, is listening and talking about it, which seems very simple.
It's not.
But it's not.
It's really not. And so we mentioned, we always encourage professional help, but we realize that sometimes what people really need sometimes is just someone who will listen and not judge and not think negative thoughts about the person who's sharing what's going on. So during COVID, we started offering something just called a listening appointment. Like, hey, this is just a 30-minute window where you can just say whatever is weighing heavy on you, heavy on your heart, heavy on your mind, whatever's stressing you out. And sometimes we could offer some advice, but again, the goal there was listening and again, referring to the appropriate resources if needed. And then the talking about it piece is so important because we need to, again, continue to normalize the conversation, and just as a church, the responsibility to do that even from the pulpit, and sharing people's stories and talking about the reality of these challenges is very important.
So we've thrown a lot at you. That's a lot of information. I mean, when we're talking about mental health, it's rare that you can get so many very clearly articulated practical ways to move through that, and that's what we just did. So what we want to do coming up after the break for the second half hour of our show is kind of reset and recap some of the things that we talked about, because we know it's important that we get this information out to you. We are live at Northeast Christian Church, and we'll be back after the break.